I'm Vegas Runner, here breaking down UFC 129 in Canada. This will be the biggest crowd in UFC history, and we're breaking down the championship fight, the marquee matchup, George St. Pierre against Jake Shields. Truth of the matter is, to be honest with you, I'm almost embarrassed to be doing these videos because of the fact VR likes dogs. He knows that's where the money is, and yet, so far, we've covered a couple favorites. Getting to this big one, the one everyone's waiting for, this should be a lot of fun. Bottom line, everyone has a different opinion. In fact, I just had a long conversation off camera with our producer, Dustin, who has an opposite opinion of myself, and a very well-versed MMA fan. So you get a lot of well-versed MMA fans who are disagreeing here, and you're hearing back and forth. That tells me one thing. UFC has done a masterful job of promoting this fight. More importantly, of promoting the fact that Jake Shields will give George St. Pierre his biggest test to date. When this line first came out, George St. Pierre was around a minus 500 favorite. He's down to minus 380, and this is just Thursday. By the time the fight goes off, and more MMA fans, UFC fans in general, watch the pre-fight shows, read the pre-fight hype, will be betting their money on Jake Shields. Because according to the professionals, according to the guys in the know, this kid has a legitimate shot at beating St. Pierre. So he looks extremely attractive at 3-1. Not too many people want to walk up to the window and bet 4 dimes to win back a dime. Fortunately for the sports books, I'm one of those guys who has no problem laying the chalk when it's warranted. And my friends, it's extremely warranted in this fight. Bottom line, Shields' best days are behind him. You heard it here first. I know he's won 15 straight fights. I know he beat Condit. He beat Okami in the same night. But when he beat those two guys in the same night, VR could have been wearing a gold Rolex when it was still in style, because that was in 2007, baby. And that was when yellow gold might have still been in style, but you won't get away with wearing it today. And today, the best fighter pound for pound is George St. Pierre. And he has also done a masterful job of saying nothing but kind words about Shields, reiterating over and over that this will be the biggest test of his career. And I'm going to explain to you why this is being done. Not simply to sell pay-per-view, not simply to create hype, but because when he coasts through Jake Shields, he will look even better than we give him credit for being. It is a masterful job of self-promotion on the part of George St. Pierre's camp, and I love hearing it. Truth of the matter is, there's one way Shields could win this fight, and that's if he gets St. Pierre in the mount and he could apply a submission. Because all I keep hearing is how the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu disciple has a chance of submitting St. Pierre. He's the best there is on the ground, and that may be true, but at this level, you will not see too many submissions from the bottom. St. Pierre will be on top, and he has the level of ground fighting where he will not get caught in a submission from Shields being on his back. The only way he gets caught in a submission is from the mount, and that will not happen. Bottom line is this: St. Pierre could dictate the fight and take it where he wants. If it stays standing, he will pick apart Jake Shields. If he takes it to the ground, I believe even there he will overwhelm him from top control, and it'll be an easy decision. I think this one has the makings of possibly ending a lot earlier and being a lot easier of a night than many believe. I know I'll have to eat a lot of crow if this isn't the case. But the truth of the matter is, Shields' best years, I do believe, are behind him. And they were back then in 2007. I love the kid. Great kid, respectful kid. I've enjoyed his fights for a very long time. I'm a huge MMA fan, so I knew about Jake Shields before I had to see any of these promos for the UFC. So that's not the case of just him not being a great fighter. But the bottom line is this. He will be overwhelmed and out of his element. And I'm going to pass a tidbit of information on to you that really helped push me to the side of St. Pierre. The UFC has asked Shields to do a lot of promoting for this fight, and let me explain why. Early on, there wasn't much attention. And the reason is not too many people outside the MMA circle knew Jake Shields. The UFC, Dana White, got on his ass about promoting. Well, let me tell you something else. Jake Shields was training on the West Coast, and yet he was forced to get up and do promos and radio and podcasts and videos on East Coast time. So here's a kid training for the biggest fight of his life and being asked by the UFC to get up at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning to promote the fight because there just wasn't enough hype, because nobody outside the real MMA circle knew of him. And I think that's going to be huge come fight night. St. Pierre's just an amazing athlete who is peaking at the right time. He's 30 years old. He's 21-2. And that one loss lately to Sarah was strictly a case of overlooking an opponent who had no shot otherwise. That will not happen again. Greg Jackson is a master game planner, and I think he's going to put together the perfect game plan. And as soon as St. Pierre shows his dominance on the ground, if anything, he's going to take the heart of Shields, who knows there's no way I could win this fight. And it's going to be an easy night. It'll be a striking fest, followed by topside control, and St. Pierre just doing damage. I don't see this one going any other way. Let me finish by saying this. For such a great submission fighter as we give Shields credit for being, his last 3 fights have gone to a decision. His first fight in the UFC, which was his previous fight, was against Catman. He could have easily lost that fight. It went to a split decision. So here's a submission specialist who went to a decision his last 3 fights. That tells me at this level of competition, his submission game isn't as dominant as it was in those lower tiers. He's at the pinnacle right now of the MMA world, UFC, and I think he really gets exposed here. Sit back, relax, let the squares line up, unloading on Shields, tying him up on those parlays, thinking he has a shot of the submission. And then when they're watching that fight and they're waiting for St. Pierre to get caught in a choke, in a guillotine, which isn't going to happen, you'll have had the chance to lay little less than hopefully 300, because at 300 this is absolutely stealing. I wish I brought my ski mask in for this video, because it's an easy night for GSP, baby. Get to the window late and bet St. Pierre. Sorry, Shields, you're a good guy, great guy. Just like St. Pierre said, the wrong place at the wrong time.